disoriented because she doesn't remember her directions. Yeah.
Maybe an occipital too?
Yeah.
It's like objects and people.
Yeah, it's like objects, so she went like we goes around town. It's street signs. There's more this one because this is the direction. Yeah.
Would getting lost, so would that mean she has like mild, or would she have like more severe Alzheimer's because she's getting lost and stuff?
And usually getting lost like that, where you just like start walking like to the store and you kind of stop remembering what's around you, that still be like mild because she still knows where she's going and she still knows what she's going to do. It's just like her directions are kind of off, like she doesn't remember exactly like where to go.
Yeah.
If she was like in severe Alzheimer's, she would just not know where she's going. She would not even know like what the grocery store is probably at that point. Okay. So here's the second one. Henry and Kate have been married for 35 years, and 3 years ago Henry was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and recently he's been getting really angry and hostile towards Kate for like really ridiculous reasons. And he also finds it difficult to dress himself and eat properly, so Kate has to help him, and she helps him really well, but he still gets really mad at her because she thinks he does it wrong. So what parts of the brain is causing this? Mo?
I would say the amygdala.
Yeah. There's another one.
Oh.
Anybody remember it? Yeah?
The frontal one?
Yep, exactly. Amygdala and frontal, because the amygdala is what makes him really, really moody. And for the frontal part of the lobe, he can't be able to perform all his functions. And here's the last one. Robert is 72 and he has Alzheimer's, and he's very forgetful. He doesn't remember names or he put things or what he's going to do. And recently he started to forget words also, and he's becoming more like tongue-tied because he can't form the sentences he'd like to because he doesn't remember the proper vocabulary. So what part or parts of the brain cause this? And yeah?
The temporal.
Yep. Yep.
Oh.
Oh no. Sorry, I messed that up. Temporal lobe and hippocampus. Yeah, I should write that. But because language and forgetfulness are the main ones affected in this. But generally, like speaking, like it can basically be all of them put together in any situation because your brain kind of works together. Okay, so here's a picture. We're about to like get into the biological stuff in the brain. So here's a picture of like a healthy neuron here, and the protein. It's all healthy and together. And here's what happens during Alzheimer's. When the neuron gets diseased and it starts dying, and there become plaques in the brain. Beta amyloid protein starts building up in the brain, and it forms like clumps, and those are called plaques, and they disturb the functions, and that's what causes all this disintegration. So, basically what happens in Alzheimer's is your neurons start to die out, but they don't like leave the brain, they start clumping up and forming what's called plaques, and that disturbs all the processes in your brain because there's a giant like, clumps of them. But recently there's been an experiment, and they also realized that they did this experiment in mice where they injected them what happens in Alzheimer's to your brain, and what they realized is there's the dying ones, but there's also neurons that get really, really hyperactive, and they just start going crazy, and then they'll die. And put together kind of gets that craziness in your brain during Alzheimer's. I guess if there's plaques, you can see a picture there. There's giant clumps of protein and neurons. And there's also neurofibrillary tangles, which is the proteins and the dead neurons like get tangled and they form like these braids and things. And they also just add on to the stuff in your brain. And for, Alzheimer's is considered a protein folding disease because the proteins in your brain, they fold in a particular way. And during Alzheimer's, they just fold wrong. And that also contributes to the plaques and stuff. Like when it folds wrong, your brain can't function the same way because everything can't go through with it. So it's pretty literal, like the protein folds wrong. And then what they've recently discovered is that there's a protein called S100A7. And when people have Alzheimer's, they realize the expression of this protein is much greater. There's a lot more of it. So they realize they can use it as a biomarker for Alzheimer's. And that means when they find specific amount of this protein, they can say this person has Alzheimer's because they have this protein. And it's really useful because Alzheimer's is really difficult to diagnose, especially early on, because they can't tell at the beginning, like during very early and mild Alzheimer's, if it's just old age or if it's Alzheimer's. And when they have something like this, they can check and they can say, yeah, you have Alzheimer's, we should start putting you through some kind of treatment or something. Okay, so the causes of Alzheimer's. These are still being researched extensively, and they still really don't know exactly what can cause it. They're thinking right now it's a genetic disease, and they found APOE, and that's on chromosomes 19 usually. And there's different types of it. The APOE4 is the gene that's the mutation, the gene on which the mutation is most likely found in Alzheimer's. And they feel that that's what causes it. And they also found different ones. SORL1 is one that they've noticed that there's a mutation there, and CDG2. So those are kind of the genes that are usually associated with Alzheimer's, but they're still not sure if that's directly what causes it. Because if you have that gene, it doesn't definitely mean you'll have Alzheimer's, but there's a much bigger chance you will. And then there's lifestyle factors too that may affect whether or not you get Alzheimer's. And they're also really iffy, but they say that if you have head trauma in your life, like severe head trauma, you have a bigger chance of getting Alzheimer's, but it hasn't technically been proven, it's just kind of statistics. Also, they say that getting more exercise during life may prevent Alzheimer's more, but they say that about everything. So that could be wrong too. Those are really questionable. Yeah. So there's no cure for Alzheimer's. Not even one. You can't cure it. Once you get it, you have it. Jared said before. And there's no actual treatment for Alzheimer's, big sound treatment for Alzheimer's. The FDA has approved 4 drugs that you can go to a doctor who have Alzheimer's, they'll give you one of these 4. The first 3, I'm really bad at pronouncing medicines, but the first 3 usually are given during earlier, mild Alzheimer's up to moderate, and they help kind of with the cognitive functions, they'll help you stay a little more oriented maybe, but they have bad side effects, like you throw up, you get really tired and stuff, and generally they're thinking they're not worth it. And then memantine is the only one that's used in more severe Alzheimer's, and basically does the same thing, it might help out the cognitive functions and keep them more alert and in reality, but none of them can slow down what's going on in your brain. So they may help your behavior, but they can't slow down what happens. Once you have it, you have it. They can't stop anything that goes on in there. Yeah.
So on the outside they look good, better, but on the inside they're really just as.
Yeah, on the outside,
it's
they're just it'll kind of help them stay function. Yeah, function. That's a good word for that. It'll help them be able to perform dress themselves maybe or talk, and it'll help them. It'll only help for a little while too, but it can't stop anything. So, and then they also give drugs that aren't prescribed for Alzheimer's.